Good morning. Hi, Eunice. Good to see you. And just so you can picture us, I'm in southeastern Pennsylvania, and Eunice is outside of Boston in Massachusetts. And my name is Suzanne McAllister, and Eunice, Schatz, and I have known each other for about 25 years when I consulted with her and her husband, Don, at LifeWork Direction, which was an organization that Eunice and Don and another individual started to help people uncover their vocations and passions. So Eunice and Eunice has okayed this for me to say that Eunice is currently living in a nursing facility, and she's been there for a little over 2 years, I believe. And the reason that Eunice went to a nursing facility when her husband Don was still alive was that she had suffered a stroke, and Don was not able to care for her, and it would have required hiring maybe not full-time, but hiring an aide, which gets to be very, very expensive. So that's why Eunice is where she is. And Don passed away, I'm going to say it was 2 years ago in November, if I have that correct.
December 3rd at 5 p.m.
Yes, okay. I stand corrected, but yes, and so it's been 2.5 years now, and you've been in the nursing facility for that amount of time. So I just wanted to set the stage for people as they are listening to you. And as I said in our first conversation, which was last week, and I will make sure that there's a link to that when I post this so that folks can go and listen to that. So we're not going to repeat ourselves, or we're going to try not to, but if we do, we do. So my interest in talking to you and recording this, Eunice, was that I have heard you speak, and I wanted others to hear it, about how you handle the situation that you're in, both physically, meaning your body, the environment, and internally, your spirit, your mind, your emotions. So however you want to address that, I would really love to hear how you are handling it. And has that changed over the 2+ years you've been there?
You know, you said a very interesting phrase.
What's that?
You'd love to hear how I handled it. And when I moved in here, I would love to know how to handle it. That's what my question was. And my response is very, I realize now, typical of me. I decided to write a book,
Of
a
course.
manual of training, not for staff, no, for residents.
Yes.
When you're facing something at this stage in your life, what does it mean? How do you handle it? And it had 4 chapters in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, when I tell the staff here about this, they grab hold of it like crazy. They said, well, write the book. I want to read it. But the first chapter is the most important. And the chapter title is Sociology.
Mm-hmm.
That was my master's program at the University of Chicago. And it intrigues me the when you're being served by a community whose social background is quite different from your own. You have to adjust to that, and that was very important for me to realize. It's a different culture, and I was interested enough in cultural differences to find that intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you, I don't consider myself a speedy learner in that field.
Okay.
So you need to know when I say this, that it took a long time to wrap that around the experience I was having. And
Can you give an example of what you mean by that, Eunice? Like something that you um, experienced and it's taken you some time to develop a
yes, and
response?
it has to do with the other three chapters. And I just realized that this morning. Your question is so relevant, because before I would just say, well, the second chapter is psychology and you're out of control and everything. I was dealing with my own psychology. But in reference to sociology, to another culture, the way they perceive their task is of a certain character because of their experience, probably because of the way our country deals with this level of occupation. People take it who can't get thing, I'm talking about the nurse assistant category, which is they're the people I see every day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the only job that they could take. In her own country, one of them from Uganda was a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
She came here and she couldn't, they have these requirements. So she has this other job. But that's
So
the,
give me an example though, if you can, of what you've had to learn in terms of understanding other cultures as they are caring for you.
well, the first reaction, I need to preface this by saying I unfortunately still have my brain pretty active. I
Mm-hmm.
think demented people might find it easier and everything, but I would notice everything was happening. And if things were in a different order, I would say, I need such and such, or what about that? And they'd be angry because
Mm.
they had a concept of the job and they didn't want to be put down for it. And I didn't want to put them down and everything. But it was a very subtle thing. And then I learned that engaging them, and this is fairly, it's only taken me 2 years to learn. Oh, please, have mercy. But I discovered joking with them and asking them questions and stuff like that. Sometimes I feel I have a loving relationship.
Mm.
But the other thing, sociologically and psychologically, and in another dimension, which I didn't separate out, but which infuses all, which is spiritual, they're here, many of them, because they feel they're caring.
Mm.
They come from cultures where families take care of each other very naturally. They can be a little rough and swat their kids on the behind and everything in ways that our culture sometimes looks down on. But their their spiritual life is very developed, and they care about that, and they understand. They've said to me, I'm here to serve God.
Mm.
So that's, we could meet on that level.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's wound up with the third chapter is institutionalization. There
Mm-hmm.
are demands of the institution related to the Department of Education in your state and related to different constraints that this organization operates under. You can't sometimes get the care you need. I needed a certain kind of physical therapy to continue. I still haven't received it.
Hmm.
I've tried over 2 years, but
Okay.
I don't fit the pattern. And so there's something also in the way the job is conceived that I was referring to in the part of getting along with the aides in a good way. They really look at the steps, 1, 2, 3. This is what I need to do. And it doesn't matter whether that bothers you or sometimes something hurts a part of your body that they don't realize. They know that this deed needs to be done. So I think they're hamstrung by the demands of the institution. And of course, at the base of this is that whoever is running the institution is looking at the bottom line. And I don't need to draw pictures to tell you how that can cut through simple things.
So if I'm hearing you, Eunice, number one, you started by saying that a lot of these folks come from other cultures. They may have been trained differently where they came from, but because when they get to this country, this is the only job they're going to be able to get. And you didn't say this, but it sounds like they do see this as valuable work, but perhaps they're not being paid very well, or maybe they're not being treated that well. You didn't say that, but that you have found a way to connect with them because they see what they're doing as God's work. And that's something that you can definitely connect with them on because of your rich spiritual life, but that they're also constrained because of the way that the institution is organized, which is government regulations and so on and so forth. And then finally, I don't know whether you're in a for-profit or a non-for-profit, but either way, they're always looking at how do we save money. And so if we can cut a certain thing out, or like you said, you don't meet the criteria for that particular physical therapy, thus 2 years later, you're still not getting it.
There's another constraint which you alluded to, but I want to draw out, and it contains the word train. I don't know that there's a concept in the institution of how you help develop in the aides as they're hired the concept of caring that is also psychological as well as medical and everything. Because when sometimes I hear them, they out in the hallway, they're arguing with each other, and no one is really helping them work together as a staff team, except from one country, Uganda. I noticed a difference, and they tend to help each other. And so if one person is stuck with a patient too long, they'll come in and help. But that's not built into the concept. And so, and this is too simple, but
no, it gives me a good idea.
That it's more complex. But the fourth chapter is so beautiful.
What's
Aesthetics. And it's my word to myself, Eunice, how can you see this time that you're landed here as a work of art, as a piece of music, as a dance, as a comic opera? What is it? Maybe there's even architecture, who knows? But anyway, it helps me to look at the experience as a part of my life that gives me an opportunity to enter it. Well, I have to tell you where that comes from. It comes from a poem in the Psalms. The Psalms are poetry, and it says, "The Lord knit you together in your mother's womb." And so when I got here, I thought, oh, geez, how you doing on the knitting yard? And I felt he was pulling on full strings, because this is true. He's making a she's making a tapestry.
Mm,
I'm being woven into a design that I didn't totally anticipate. But I look at it, it's not so bad. It's not like this quilt, which is
yes.
very, it's according to count numbers and everything, but it's has its own grace and beauty. Because my real task at this stage of life is not knowing things, it's knowing myself.
Mm,
Knowing myself like you would look at a piece of art. And I have things all over the wall here, some that people have given me. And this is the deepest part of it here.
mm, mm. The knowing yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's knowing things in me that are different colors than I knew
Mm.
and have different depths than I knew. I mean, seeing it all is as a work of art that God is trying to knit
Mm.
or draw or something. Music he's trying to play.
So I'm curious because I think that perspective that you just described when you started talking about the fourth chapter, aesthetics, I immediately went to what does your environment look like? But that's me. And you went to a very different place, which is really, I think, remarkable, where, you quote from the Psalm, I was knitted in my mother's womb, but you're seeing the whole tapestry of your
Tapestry.
life, and this is one piece of it, and you're viewing it from that perspective. And rather than judging it good, bad, or anything, you're just saying, well, what is it? And what am I being called to do, excuse me, or to accept? And I'm thinking, talk about giving up control and and just saying, can I approach this with wonder and curiosity? And
That's so beautiful. Yeah, thank you. This is where it's important to say, remember what we know of you and I were not mothers, but we know about babies being born. And look at that placenta, what it carries, and how that little creature makes its way through that. You see, I'm facing death now. Of course, I mistakenly thought I was going to die because I had a stroke. And then
mm,
my husband died. I thought, well, it's all right. We had covenanted together. We did all the work about making our will out and everything. And the DNR do nothing. He was in the hospital and they wanted to do something with his hernia, and he would put up his hand and not let them. He was ready to go,
yeah.
and I let him go.
Mm,
So
mm,
I didn't grieve the way other people did for 2 years
mm,
because I thought I was going and I kept not going. But that's when the other salvific thing about it, I suddenly realized death is a birth. I'm in a placenta.
mm,
I'm in a placenta called stage of life, the last stage of the third stage of life. And that's the people you're talking to and about. They're in that stage. And if death is a birth, it changes your whole idea.
mm,
It changes your perspective. You realize you're being shaped.
mm,
I I can't express it eloquently enough, but I'm trusting you that you can grasp it the way I feel it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the mystery that's ahead, we don't own it in one little silo down here on earth. This is the truth and this is it, that's all over the place. But we're being more gentle about that. We're saying more, I don't know.
Yes.
And we replaced knowing with trust. That's such a big word, trust. And trusting is the only thing that gives me hope and love.
I want to just go back. You said that you were not expressing it eloquently, but you said these words, and I'm going to look forward to listening again to what you said just a moment ago. My response to you when you said that, you hoped I was hearing it or understanding it, is that I want those words to go through my body the way poetry goes through one's bodies. It's not a straight line, it's not necessarily logical, but it can hit and penetrate in a way that prose or other kind of writing or words do not. So I look forward to hearing again what you just said. I can't even repeat the words that you said, but I know
But
that
you used a very, very telling phrase. You just said a felt sense.
yes.
That's part of something called focusing. Which, do you know about focusing? Yeah, you do. Okay, your people might want to learn about it because it's a device used in therapy by some people so that your body knows the score. That's a book, it's out. Your body knows more than your brain does. And we're all into brain science now, and I love it, but your body knows.
Yes.
And they're discovering that the mind or the unconscious or some part of ourselves we don't know how to name is alive even when the brain is dead. They have experiences of people. And I don't want to go off the chart here on that, but
yes,
there's some things we don't know except by a felt sense.
Yes. So I'm going to suggest, just because I think, for me at least, you said so much that I would like to stop the recording pretty soon so that it for me at least, I will go back to it and listen to it in a very careful way, in a slow way, because I think what you said was so rich. And you experienced, if I saw it correctly, a felt sense when you started to tear up.
Yeah, you awaken that in me unconsciously, maybe, but just through who you are.
Well, we are blessed, Eunice, to know each other and to be able to do this, that you were willing to do this, that I had the interest because I know you. And as I've said to you over the years, my friends would often say, I want a Eunice in my life. So this is my way of bringing a Eunice to other people's lives.
I like to think that God said when I was in the womb, I want Eunice in my life. You know, that would be sweet.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love
that's
that.
so sweet.
Thank
Yeah, this
you.
is sweet.
Yes, thank you. It is sweet. It is sweet.
Thank you.